Maya woke before dawn and spent 2 hours reviewing everything she had learned about both empires. Then she did something that surprised everyone. She requested private meetings with the lowest-ranking members of both delegations. "I need to understand. Your culture's better," she told High Chancellor Oren when he questioned her request. "As the newest species in the galaxy, humans have much to learn from your ancient wisdom." The Vorth leader's crystalline form hummed with what Maya had learned. "Was amusement. Very well. Perhaps Junior Resonator Quill can educate you about our mathematical principles. It may help you understand why our claim is beyond dispute." War Prime Thane had a similar reaction when Maya approached the Keth delegation. "Honor guard. Rays can teach you about our glorious history. Maybe then you will see why we cannot abandon our sacred duty to the fallen." Maya met with Quill in a small conference room that had been adjusted for Vorth physiology. The crystalline being was much smaller than the senior delegates, and his blue glow was dimmer. He seemed nervous about speaking to a human, but Maya's gentle questions soon put him at ease. "Tell me about your homeworlds," Maya said. "What are they like?" Quill's harmonic shifted to a lower frequency. "Our cities are grown from living crystal, shaped by mathematical formulas that have been perfected over millennia. Each building resonates with the others, creating harmony that strengthens our entire civilization." "That sounds beautiful," Maya replied. "Are you working on any new projects?" The junior resonator's glow dimmed further. "We should be expanding our cities, but there are complications. Our growth formulas require specific mineral compositions that are becoming harder to find. Some of our older cities are showing signs of structural weakness." Maya nodded sympathetically. "That must be very concerning for your people. The High Chancellor says we must not speak of such things to outsiders," Quill whispered. "But yes, it keeps many of us awake during rest cycles. If we cannot find the right minerals soon, our entire civilization might begin to collapse." Maya thanked Quill and arranged a similar meeting with Rays from the Keth delegation. The metallic warrior was young by Keth standards, but his armor bore the scars of many battles. Unlike Quill, he seemed eager to talk about his empire's challenges. "The older generals say we must always expand, always conquer," Rays explained. "But many of us wonder what the point is. We have claimed so many worlds that we cannot properly govern them all. Our resources are stretched thin, and our people are tired of endless war. What would you prefer to do instead?" Maya asked. Rays's metallic face showed surprise. "No one has ever asked me that before, I suppose. I would like to build something instead of destroying it. My mate and I have young cubs, and I want them to have a future that involves more than just fighting." "What kind of future would you build for them?" "There are worlds in our territory that could be beautiful if we terraform them properly. We have the technology, but it requires enormous amounts of energy. More energy than our current power sources can provide." Maya spent the next 3 days meeting with junior members of both delegations. She learned that the Vorth's mathematical perfection was hiding serious structural problems in their civilization. Their crystal cities were indeed beginning to weaken, and their population was slowly declining as they struggled to maintain their way of life. The Keth were facing their own crisis. Their honor-based culture was fracturing as younger generations questioned the value of endless conquest. Many Keth worlds were overcrowded and polluted from rapid military expansion, and their economy was unsustainable without constant warfare. Most importantly, Maya discovered that both empires desperately needed the quantum crystals from the Nexus system, but not for the reasons they were stating publicly. The Vorth could use the crystals to synthesize the exact minerals their cities required, while the Keth could power terraforming operations that would give their people a new purpose beyond war. Meanwhile, the formal negotiations continued to deteriorate. Each day brought new arguments about ancient territorial claims and historical precedents. The Vorth presented mathematical proofs that dated back thousands of years, while the Keth recited the names of warriors who had died in battles that predated human civilization. Ambassador Trin tried to broker a compromise by offering to purchase the quantum crystals from whichever empire won the dispute. But both sides rejected this as irrelevant to their honor. Keeper Yan suggested arbitration by neutral judges, but the Vorth claimed that no one else could understand their mathematical proofs. While the Keth insisted that outsiders could not judge matters of warrior honor, the other ambassadors began to give up hope. Speaker Finn from the Gardeners had already started discussing evacuation plans for civilian populations in nearby systems. The general consensus was that war was inevitable, and the best they could do was try to limit its scope, but Maya was beginning to see something that no one else had noticed. The formal negotiation sessions were political theater, designed to justify positions that both empires had already decided upon. The real decisions were being made by the senior leaders in private, based on information that they were keeping secret from their own people. She realized that High Chancellor Oren and War Prime Thane were both trapped by their own propaganda. They had told their people that the dispute was about honor and ancient rights. But the truth was that both empires were facing existential crises that they were too proud to admit. On the fourth evening, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She requested a private meeting with both Quill and Reyes together in neutral territory. When they arrived at the small conference room, both young aliens seemed nervous about meeting with someone from the opposing empire. "I want to share something with both of you," Maya said. "But first, I need you to promise that you will listen with open minds." Quill's harmonics were uncertain. "What could you possibly tell us that we do not already know?" "I want to tell you about a solution that could save both of your civilizations," Maya replied. "But it requires cooperation instead of conquest." Reyes' metallic face showed skepticism. "Cooperation with crystal singers? That is not the Keth way. And cooperation with metal warriors is not the Vorth way," Quill added. Maya smiled. "Then maybe it's time for both of your peoples to find a new way. Because the old ways are killing you, and I can prove it." She spent the next 2 hours showing them data that their own leaders had been hiding. The mineral crisis that threatened Vorth civilization, the unsustainable expansion that was destroying Keth society, and the quantum crystals that could solve both problems if the empires worked together instead of fighting each other. By the end of the meeting, both young aliens were staring at her with expressions of amazement and hope. They had never imagined that their enemies might actually be potential partners in solving their civilization's greatest challenges. "What do you want us to do?" Quill asked. "I want you to help me show your people the truth," Maya replied. "But we have to be very careful about how we do it." Maya sat in her small office on Earth Station Alpha when the message arrived. The holographic display showed the official seal of the Galactic Council, something she had never seen directed at her before. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the transmission. "Ambassador Maya Chun of the Terran Republic," the voice spoke in perfect standard galactic. "You are hereby requested to attend emergency peace negotiations between the hegemony of Vorth and the dominion of Keth. Your presence is required within 72 hours at Neutral Station Tempest." Maya read the message 3 times. She had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for only 2 years, and in that time she had mostly observed meetings about trade routes and mining rights. The Vorth and Keth were ancient empires that had existed for thousands of years before humans had even discovered fire. Why would they want her at their peace talks? She quickly pulled up the intelligence files on both empires. The hegemony of Vorth was ruled by crystalline beings who stood 3 meters tall and communicated through harmonic vibrations. Their empire spanned 47 star systems, and they were known for their advanced mathematics and energy manipulation. The dominion of Keth consisted of metallic-skinned humanoids who valued honor and conquest above all else. They controlled 39 systems and had one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. The dispute involved a star system called Nexus, which contained rare quantum crystals essential for faster-than-light travel. Both empires claimed the system, based on ancient territorial rights. Their fleets were already massing at the borders. An intelligence report suggested that war was only days away. Maya packed her belongings and boarded the diplomatic transport ship. The journey to Neutral Station Tempest took 2 days, giving her time to study every document she could find about both empires. She memorized their histories, their cultures, their military capabilities, and their previous diplomatic encounters. Most importantly, she studied their psychology. When the transport ship docked at Neutral Station Tempest, Maya was struck by the massive size of the facility. The station orbited a gas giant with swirling purple and gold clouds, and its docking bays could accommodate ships from dozens of different species. As she walked through the corridors, she saw beings she had only read about in textbooks. The Vorth delegation had arrived first and claimed the eastern wing of the station. Their crystalline forms glowed with soft blue light, and their harmonious communication created an almost musical background noise. The Keth delegation occupied the western wing, their metallic armor clanking with each step and their voices carrying the harsh tones of warriors. Maya was assigned quarters in the central section, along with representatives from other species who had interests in preventing the war. She met Ambassador Trin from the Merchants of Vel, a spider-like creature whose species controlled much of the galaxy's trade. There was also Keeper Yan from the Archivists of the Ring, a floating jellyfish-like being whose people preserved knowledge from across the galaxy. The Gardeners of the Outer Rim had sent Speaker Finn, a tree-like being who rarely spoke, but whose presence commanded respect. The opening ceremony took place in the station's main conference hall. The room was circular, with each delegation seated according to their species' preferences. The Vorth sat on elevated platforms that allowed their crystalline forms to catch and reflect the room's lighting. The Keth sat in angular chairs that resembled thrones, their weapons displayed prominently as symbols of honor. Maya found herself seated between two delegations she had never heard of before, feeling very small and very human. She wore simple Earth clothing while everyone else displayed elaborate symbols of their civilizations. Power and authority. High Chancellor Orin of the Vorth spoke first, his voice creating complex harmonics that the translation system struggled to convert. We gather here to discuss the rightful ownership of the Nexus system. The hegemony of Vorth has maintained mathematical proof of our claim for 7,000 years. Our calculations show that the quantum crystals were formed by stellar processes that we first mapped and understood. War Prime Thane of the Keth responded, immediately, his metallic voice echoing through the chamber. The Dominion of Keth conquered the Nexus system in glorious battle 4,000 years ago. Our warriors died for that system, and their honor demands that we hold it. No mathematical theory can override the blood debt we are owed. Maya listened carefully to both statements, noting something that seemed to escape the other diplomats. Neither empire had actually mentioned what they planned to do with the quantum crystals. They were focused entirely on who had the right to claim them, not on why they needed them. Ambassador Trin attempted to mediate by suggesting a trade agreement that would give both empires access to the crystals in exchange for other resources. The Vorth rejected this immediately, stating that their claim was absolute and could not be bargained away. The Keth also refused, saying that accepting such a deal would dishonor their fallen warriors. Keeper Yan proposed establishing a joint research station that would study the crystals for the benefit of all species. Again, both empires rejected the idea. The Vorth claimed that outsiders could not understand the mathematical complexities involved, while the Keth argued that sharing spoils of war was against their code of honor. As the hours passed, Maya began to understand that this was not really a negotiation at all. Both empires had come to Neutral Station Tempest not to find a solution, but to demonstrate their positions before witnesses. They expected the other species to choose sides or step aside while they went to war. The formal session ended with both empires restating their positions and demanding that the other withdraw their claims. The tension in the room was so thick that Maya could feel it pressing against her skin. As the delegates filed out, she noticed that the Vorth and Keth did not even look at each other. That evening, Maya sat in her quarters reviewing the day's events. She had been invited to prevent a war, but she was beginning to realize that everyone expected her to fail. The other ambassadors had centuries of experience in galactic diplomacy, and they were already talking about damage control and refugee assistants, but Maya had an advantage that nobody else seemed to recognize. She was human, and humans had spent their entire history learning to understand each other despite vast differences in culture, language, and beliefs. She had studied both empires not just as political entities, but as groups of individuals with needs, fears, and hopes. Tomorrow, she would begin to listen in a way that no one else had tried. Maya entered the conference hall on the 5th day with a plan that would either prevent a war or get her thrown out of the negotiations entirely. She had spent the previous night working with Quill and Reyes to prepare data presentations that would reveal the truth about both empires. The formal session began with another round of accusations and demands. High Chancellor Oren presented new mathematical proofs showing that the Vorth had calculated stellar drift patterns in the Nexus system before the Keth had even achieved interstellar travel. War Prime Thane countered with historical records of Keth battles that had been fought to secure the system for their empire. Ambassador Trin made another attempt at mediation, offering to establish a neutral mining consortium that would share the quantum crystals among all interested parties. The Vorth rejected this immediately, with Oren's harmonics shifting to frequencies that the translation system indicated were expressions of contempt. The merchants of Vel think everything can be bought and sold, Oren said. But some things are beyond commerce? Our mathematical claim to the Nexus system is absolute. War Prime Thane was equally dismissive. The Dominion of Keth does not share the spoils of war. Our warriors died for that system, and their sacrifice demands that we hold it. Maya watched the exchange with growing frustration. Both empires were so focused on their public positions that they were ignoring the real problems that threatened their civilizations. She knew that someone had to break the pattern, even if it meant taking a huge risk. She stood up. The room fell silent. In 5 days of negotiations, the human representative had not spoken once during the formal sessions. Every other species turned to look at her, and she could feel the weight of their attention. High Chancellor Oren, War Prime Thane, Maya began. Her voice steadied despite her racing heart. I have something to say that I think you both need to hear. Oren's crystalline form flickered with annoyance. The human delegation has no claim to the Nexus system. Your opinion is irrelevant to these proceedings. You're absolutely right, Maya said, surprising everyone in the room. Humanity has no claim to the Nexus system, no ancient rights to invoke, and no warrior ancestors to honor. We're the newest species in the galaxy, and we have no business telling ancient empires how to conduct their affairs. War Prime Thane's metallic face showed confusion. Then why are you speaking? Because sometimes being an outsider means you can see things that those who are too close to the problem cannot, Maya replied. And what I see is 2 great civilizations that are about to destroy themselves over a misunderstanding. The room erupted in protests. Oren's harmonics rose to frequencies that hurt Maya's ears, while Thane's voice became a metallic roar of outrage. The other ambassadors tried to restore order, but Maya continued speaking. High Chancellor Oren, your empire is facing a mineral crisis that threatens the structural integrity of your crystal cities. Junior Resonator Quill has shown me the projections, and without the right materials, your civilization will begin to collapse within a generation. The Vorth delegation fell silent, their harmonics stopping abruptly. Oren's crystalline form began to glow with what Maya recognized as rage. War Prime Thane, your empire is stretched beyond its ability to maintain control. Honor Guard Reyes has explained to me how your people are tired of endless conquest and want to build something instead of destroying it. Your current expansion is unsustainable, and your economy will collapse without constant warfare. The Keth delegation was equally silent, their metallic faces showing shock and anger. Thane's hand moved to his weapon, but he did not draw it. You dare spy on our internal affairs? Oren demanded, his voice creating harmonics that made the room's windows vibrate. I didn't spy on anyone, Maya replied calmly. I simply listened to what your own people were telling me. Something that apparently no one else has bothered to do? You have violated the sacred trust of these negotiations, Thane said, his voice deadly quiet. Honor demands that you face consequences for this betrayal. The only betrayal here is the one you're both committing against your own people, Maya shot back. You're so focused on ancient claims and warrior honor that you're ignoring the fact that both of your civilizations are dying. She activated the holographic display in the center of the room, showing data that Quill and Reyes had helped her compile. The projections were stark and undeniable, the Vorth cities showing increasing structural weakness, the Keth worlds showing resource depletion and social unrest. This is what your war is really about, Maya continued. Not ancient rights or warrior honor, but survival. Both of your empires need the quantum crystals from the Nexus system to solve existential problems. The Vorth need them to synthesize the minerals that will save your cities. The Keth need them to power terraforming operations that will give your people a new purpose. The room was completely silent now. Even the other ambassadors had stopped trying to interrupt, caught up in the implications of what Maya was revealing. But here's the thing that neither of you seems to understand, Maya said, her voice growing stronger. You don't have to fight each other for these crystals. Working together, you could extract and process them far more efficiently than either empire could manage alone. She changed the display to show projections that she had worked out with help from both Quill and Reyes. The Vorth's advanced mathematical modeling, combined with the Keth's military logistics, could create a mining operation. That would yield 3 times as many usable crystals as either empire could produce independently. The Vorth have the theoretical knowledge to optimize extraction patterns, Maya explained. The Keth have the practical experience to implement large-scale operations. Together, you could not only solve both of your civilization's problems, but create a surplus that could be traded to other species. High Chancellor Oren's harmonics returned, but at a much lower frequency. You suggest that we share our sacred mathematical knowledge with warriors who know nothing of theoretical principles? And you suggest that we work alongside crystal singers, who have never held a weapon in battle. War Prime Thane added. I suggest that you both stop letting pride kill your people, Maya said bluntly. Your mathematical principles and warrior traditions are meaningless if your civilizations collapse because you were too stubborn to accept help. The silence that followed was different from before. Instead of shocked outrage, there was a quality, a thoughtful consideration. Maya could see that her words had hit home, even if neither leader was ready to admit it. Ambassador Trin was the first to speak. The human raises interesting points. Perhaps we should consider new approaches to this dispute. The human raises impossible points, Oren corrected. The hegemony of Vorth has never shared critical knowledge with outsiders. Our mathematical secrets are the foundation of our civilization. And the Dominion of Keth has never asked for help from others, Thane added. We solve our problems through strength and honor, not through cooperation with those who do not understand our ways. Maya looked at both leaders, seeing the fear behind their defiance. They were terrified of appearing weak, of admitting that their ancient ways might not be sufficient to meet their current challenges. Then you'll both die with your pride intact, she said quietly, and your people will die with you. But at least you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that you never compromised your principles. She turned and walked toward the door, knowing that she had done all she could. The rest was up to the empires themselves. Where are you going? Keeper Yen called after her. To prepare evacuation plans, Maya replied. Because if they won't listen to reason, then we need to be ready for the refugees. Maya's dramatic exit from the conference hall sent shockwaves through both delegations. She had not returned to her quarters, instead choosing to work in the station's public areas where members of both empires could see her preparing refugee assistance plans. The message was clear. She expected their negotiations to fail and their civilizations to go to war within hours. Word of her revelations had spread throughout the station. The junior members of both delegations were whispering among themselves, sharing information that their leaders had forbidden them to discuss. Quill and Reyes had become the centers of small groups of young Vorth and Keth who were learning about their enemies. True situations for the first time. High Chancellor Oren called an emergency meeting of the Vorth delegation. His crystalline form was glowing with agitation as he addressed his subordinates. "The human has violated every principle of diplomatic discretion," he said, his harmonics sharp with anger. "She has revealed classified information and made unauthorized proposals that could undermine our entire negotiating position." Senior Resonator Kell nodded in agreement. "The Dominion of Keth now knows about our mineral crisis. They will use this knowledge against us." But Junior Resonator Quill stepped forward, his smaller form trembling with nervous energy. "High Chancellor, with respect, the human's data is correct. I have run the calculations myself. Without the quantum crystals, our cities will begin to fail within 23 years. That information is classified," Orin snapped. "You had no right to share it with outsiders." "But High Chancellor," another young Vorth interjected, "if the human is correct about cooperation, we could solve our mineral crisis and help the Keth solve their expansion problems. The mathematical elegance of such a solution is undeniable." Orin's glow flickered with uncertainty. He had built his entire career on the principle that the Vorth was superior to other species because of their mathematical perfection. The idea that they might need help from warrior barbarians challenged everything he believed about his civilization. Meanwhile, War Prime Thane was having similar difficulties with his own delegation. The Keth warriors had always prided themselves on their independence and strength, but Maya's revelations had shaken their confidence. "The human has shown weakness by revealing our internal struggles," General Voss argued. "We should challenge her to combat for this dishonor." But Honor Guard Reyes stood up, his young face determined. "War Prime, the human spoke the truth. My generation is tired of endless conquest. We want to build something that will last, not just destroy what others have created." "You speak of weakness," Thane said, his metallic voice carrying the weight of authority. "The Keth way is strength through battle, not cooperation with crystal singers. Then why are we here?" Another young warrior asked. "If we were truly strong, we would have taken the Nexus system already instead of talking about it. The human is right. We need those crystals for terraforming, not for conquest." The debates within both delegations continued throughout the night. The older leaders tried to maintain discipline and traditional thinking, but the younger members were increasingly vocal about their support for Maya's cooperative approach. Maya herself was working with the other ambassadors to prepare for the worst-case scenario. She had requested detailed information about shipping capacity and refugee settlement options, making it clear that she expected both empires to tear themselves apart in the coming war. Ambassador Trin watched her work with growing admiration. "The human has created quite a stir," the spider-like creature observed. "Both empires are arguing among themselves instead of with each other." "That was the point," Maya replied without looking up from her datapad. "Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to force people to confront the consequences of their choices." Keeper Yan floated nearby, his jellyfish-like form pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. "The archivists have seen many civilizations face similar crossroads. Those who adapt survive, while those who cling to old ways perish." "And which category do you think the Vorth and Keth fall into?" Maya asked. "That depends on whether their young leaders can overcome their old ones," Yan replied. "Revolution is never easy, but sometimes it is necessary." By the second day after Maya's revelation, the situation had become critical. Both delegations were split between traditional hardliners and progressive reformers. The Vorth were experiencing something unprecedented in their history, mathematical discord, with different factions presenting competing calculations about their civilization's future. The Keth were facing their own crisis as young warriors began to question the honor system that had defined their culture for millennia. Honor Guard Reyes had gathered a group of junior officers who were discussing the possibility of building colonies instead of conquering them. The breaking point came when Junior Resonator Quill requested permission to meet with Honor Guard Reyes to discuss cooperative mining techniques. High Chancellor Orin forbade the meeting, but Quill defied him and met with Reyes anyway. Their conversation was overheard by other members of both delegations, and soon small groups of Vorth and Keth were meeting in secret to discuss Maya's proposals. The strict hierarchies that had governed both empires for thousands of years were beginning to crumble. Senior Resonator Cal approached Maya in the station's central hub, his crystalline form flickering with uncertainty. Human Maya, I must speak with you about the mathematical projections you presented. What about them? Maya asked, not looking up from her refugee planning. They are correct, Cal admitted. I have verified the calculations independently. Oh. Civilization will collapse without the quantum crystals, and the cooperative approach you suggested would yield optimal results. Maya finally looked up at him. Then why don't you tell High Chancellor Orrin that? Because it would mean admitting that our traditional methods are insufficient, Cal replied. Such an admission would undermine the entire foundation of Vorth society. And is maintaining that foundation more important than saving your people? Maya asked. Before Cal could answer, General Voss from the Keth delegation approached. The metallic warrior looked uncomfortable but determined. Human Maya, I must ask you about the terraforming projections you showed us. Are they accurate? Yes, Maya replied. Your people have the technology and expertise to transform dead worlds into gardens, but you need massive amounts of energy to power the process. The quantum crystals would provide that energy. And you believe that working with the Crystal Singers would be more efficient than conquering the system ourselves? Maya nodded. Your military logistics combined with their mathematical optimization would create a mining operation that could supply both empires with everything they need. General Voss stood silent for a moment, then spoke quietly. My cubs deserve a future that involves more than endless war. If cooperation can provide that future, then perhaps honor lies in building rather than destroying. As word of these conversations spread, the pressure on both empires' leadership became unbearable. The old guard was losing control as their own. People began to embrace new possibilities. High Chancellor Orrin found himself facing a mathematical rebellion, with his own resonators presenting calculations that proved cooperation was not only possible but necessary. War Prime Thane was confronting a crisis of honor, as his warriors began to argue that true strength lay in securing their people's future rather than maintaining outdated traditions. Maya watched the internal struggles with careful attention, knowing that the next few hours would determine whether her gamble had succeeded or failed. Two ancient empires were tearing themselves apart, but from their destruction, something new might emerge. The final day began with chaos. Maya woke to the sound of heated arguments echoing through the station's corridors as both delegations continued their internal battles. She quickly dressed and made her way to the observation deck where she could see the fleets of both empires holding position near the system's edge. The formal negotiations had been suspended as both High Chancellor Orrin and War Prime Thane struggled to maintain control of their own people. The Vorth delegation had split into three factions: traditionalists who wanted to maintain the old ways, moderates who were willing to consider limited cooperation, and progressives who fully supported Maya's collaborative approach. The Keth were experiencing their own revolution. Young warriors had begun openly questioning their elders, arguing that true honor lay in protecting their people's future rather than dying for ancient grudges. Onagard Reyes had become the unofficial leader of this movement, with nearly half the delegation supporting his position. Maya found herself in the unique position of being the only person that both sides trusted. Junior Resonator Quill approached her first, his crystalline form dimmer than usual with exhaustion. Human Maya, our delegation is fracturing, he said, his harmonics conveying distress. The High Chancellor refuses to consider cooperation, but the mathematical evidence is overwhelming. We need those crystals, and we need them soon. What are you going to do? Maya asked. Some of us are considering requesting new leadership, Quill replied. But such a step would be unprecedented in Vorth history. We have never removed a High Chancellor from office. Before Maya could respond, Honor Guard Reyes approached with several other young Keth warriors. Their metallic faces showed determination, mixed with uncertainty. Human Maya, we need your advice, Reyes said. War Prime Thane has ordered us to prepare for battle, but many of us believe that fighting the Vorth will only lead to mutual destruction. How do we choose between orders and conscience? Maya looked at the young beings from both empires, seeing the fear and hope in their eyes. These were the future leaders of their civilizations, and they were looking to her for guidance. I can't tell you what to do, she said carefully. But I can tell you what I've learned about leadership. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is admit that the old ways aren't working and try something new. But what if we're wrong? Quill asked. What if cooperation fails and we destroy our civilizations in the process? What if you're right and refusing to cooperate destroys them anyway? Maya replied, either way, you're taking a risk. The question is whether you want to risk failure while trying something new or risk extinction while clinging to something old. The group fell silent, considering her words. Then Ray spoke up, his voice carrying new conviction. I have decided. I will not lead my people into a war that serves no purpose except to maintain the pride of old leaders. If War Prime Thane will not change course, then perhaps it is time for new leadership. Quill's harmonics shifted to frequencies that Maya had learned indicated determination. I agree. The mathematics are clear. Cooperation offers the best chance for survival. If High Chancellor Orin cannot accept this, then perhaps the Resonator Council should choose a new leader. Within hours, the revolution had begun. The younger members of both delegations formally requested emergency sessions to discuss new leadership. The Vorth invoked an ancient mathematical principle that allowed them to replace leaders whose calculations proved incorrect. The Keth cited warrior codes that permitted the challenge of leaders who endangered their people through poor strategic decisions. Chancellor Orin and War Prime Thane found themselves facing something neither had experienced before, their own people united against them. The old guard tried to maintain control, but the mathematical evidence and strategic logic were overwhelming. Maya watched from the observation deck as the two empires underwent peaceful but decisive transitions of power. The Vorth Council of Resonance voted to replace Orin with a collective leadership that included both traditional and progressive voices. The Keth War Circle chose Honor Guard Rays as their new War Prime, with General Voss serving as his strategic advisor. The first joint meeting between the new leaders took place in the station's central conference room. Maya had been invited to attend, but she chose to observe from the gallery. Knowing that this moment belonged to the Vorth and Keth themselves, Junior Resonator Quill, now serving as speaker for the Vorth Council, addressed his former enemies with carefully modulated harmonics. We acknowledge that our civilizations have been trapped by pride and tradition. The mathematical evidence shows that cooperation offers optimal solutions for both our peoples. War Prime Rays responded with equal formality. The Keth accept that true honor lies in securing our people's future, not in maintaining conflicts that serve no purpose. We are prepared to work with the Vorth to develop the Nexus system for our mutual benefit. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of arguing over territorial claims, both sides focused on practical solutions. The Vorth contributed their advanced mathematical models for optimal crystal extraction, while the Keth provided their expertise in large-scale logistics and resource management. Within 6 hours, they had developed a comprehensive plan that would establish the first cooperative mining operation in galactic history. The quantum crystals would be shared according to each empire's needs, with surplus production available for trade with other species. Maya finally joined the negotiations when both sides requested her assistance in drafting the formal agreement. She helped them create a document that honored both cultures while establishing new precedents for interspecies cooperation. The signing ceremony took place as the station's sun began to rise over the gas giant below. Representatives from both empires placed their signatures on the agreement, creating what would become known as the Nexus Accords. Ambassador Trin approached Maya after the ceremony, his spider-like form moving with excited energy. The merchants of Vel are eager to establish trade relationships with both empires under this new arrangement. This could revolutionize galactic commerce. Keeper Yan was equally enthusiastic. The archivists will study this event for generations. You have created a new model for conflict resolution that could prevent countless wars. But Maya was already thinking about the future. The success at Neutral Station Tempest had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Her communication device was filled with requests for mediation from species who had heard about the human approach to diplomacy. War Prime Rays approached her as she prepared to leave the station. Human Maya, the Keth owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have given us a future that we thought was impossible. You gave yourselves that future, Maya replied. I just helped you see that it was possible. Speaker Quill joined them, his harmonics conveying deep gratitude. The Vorth mathematical models show that this cooperation will save both our civilizations. We would be honored if you would visit our worlds to see what we build together. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction that went beyond diplomatic success. I would like that very much. As her transport ship departed from Neutral Station Tempest, Maya looked back at the gas giant where two ancient empires had learned to become something new. The fleets that had been poised for war were now working together to establish mining operations in the Nexus system. Her final report to Earth was simple: mission accomplished. Two empires have learned that cooperation is stronger than conquest. The galaxy is about to change. By the time she reached Earth, Maya had received formal requests for mediation from 12 different species. The human approach to diplomacy, based on listening, understanding, and addressing real needs rather than stated positions, was becoming the new standard for interspecies relations. The hegemony of Vorth had become the cooperative of Vorth, while the dominion of Keth had transformed into the Republic of Keth. Together, they were pioneering new forms of government that balanced traditional values with progressive cooperation. Maya stood on the observation deck of Earth Station Alpha, looking out at the stars and knowing that somewhere among them, former enemies were working together to build something better than either could have achieved alone. The galaxy was learning that the greatest strength came not from conquest or mathematical perfection, but from the simple human understanding that everyone had needs that deserved to be heard and addressed. Two empires had fallen, but from their ashes something greater had emerged.